Welcome to Open House, where every conversation opens a new perspective. Today we have Miss Claudia Correia, a clinical dietitian. Claudia is an accredited dietitian of Singapore and dietitian member of SNDA. Welcome to Open House, Claudia. So to start off, could you tell us a little bit about the work that you do?
Thank you, Durga. Thank you for having me here. So my work is divided into two areas. One is the clinical nutrition that I practice. So I basically add on to the medical treatment of the patients. So people come to me with different medical conditions like diabetes, high cholesterol, and they usually come with the doctor's referral. I help them to optimize their diet just to make sure that they improve their health, but also can sustain their health and get a better quality of life in the long term. And the second part of my job is the health talks that I provide to corporates. I like to believe that is the prevention type of my work, that we help to give information in several topics: healthy eating, mindfulness, and also how to prevent certain diseases like diabetes and cardiovascular disease, or even how to improve productivity through lifestyle.
Right. I think that's perfect. And we all need it. You know, we lead such busy lives in cities like Singapore. And I think diet plays a huge part into how we live our lives. And we tend to take that for granted, you know, and we reach out for what's easy. To begin, you know, maybe what inspired you to become a dietitian? I think, you know, was it a calling of some sort?
I always joke that it was a profession that picked me rather than me picking the profession, because I barely knew. It's not something that you hear much in Portugal. And it was me in a desperate attempt to find something that it would match my need and my urge to help others. Being able to help someone for something that we do every day. We eat every day. We're always thinking on food. And I love the fact that I could work in so many different places, because although I work now in a hospital, we could work in communities, in schools, in universities, in the kitchen. So anywhere that we talk about food, we deal with food, we can be there. And it's also something that attracted me to go and picked it up. And once I started studying it, I realized that that was it. That was the place that I needed to be.
Something very interesting that you mentioned is that you're from Portugal.
Yes.
Right? What brought you to Singapore?
It was the desire to be a better dietitian and to do more and to explore more. So I left Portugal in early 2012. And when I started thinking about what my career and my life in 2011, it was when the crisis was hitting Europe.
Right.
And so I really wanted to work in a hospital. I really wanted to be a clinical dietitian, and the opportunities was really, really scarce. And I didn't want to sit down and wait for the crisis to hit to have a career that doesn't evolve anywhere. So then I started looking around, and Singapore sounded like a very interesting place, full of opportunities. And I love the fact that it's so multicultural. The learning never stops. There's no like a Singaporean diet. There is a Chinese diet. There is the Indian diet. There is the Malay diet. There is the fusion of everything together. And there is all the others that come in. So that really interested me. And the fact that it's big, but yet small. So yeah, I'm really glad I took that dive.
How long have you been here for?
12 years.
Wow, that's amazing. And you know the ins and outs of the Singaporean diet, so to speak, right?
Yes.
So it's so interesting that you mentioned we don't have what we would call a Singaporean diet. And as a Singaporean myself, I think that's so true, because if you walk into a hawker center or a food court, you know, you've got an array of dishes that you can pick from. We're always thinking of food, right, in Singapore. So there's this joke that runs that while we are eating our breakfast, we are planning for lunch. And while we are eating our lunch, we are planning for dinner. And I think that's how most Singaporeans are. It's very interesting that you're from Portugal, so it's more of a European diet. What would you say is the difference between the two countries, you know?
So many. So I would say Asian diet. I think we can put it like that rather than talk about Singaporean diet. It's more carbs based. So the center of our meal is which carbs will we have, and it's really interesting. And the reason why I'm saying this is that when I do diet history, for instance, with my clients in Singapore, you normally say, what do you have for breakfast? Usually, what did you have yesterday? And the sentence start rice with. In Portugal, on the other hand, if you ask someone about their diet, they would say, I had pork with something or fish with something. So the center there is the protein. Portugal is one of the countries that eats the most protein. So I think that's the main strike, the biggest difference. The second, I would say, we do strike to eat more often at home. So even growing up, we always say that if you have something to celebrate, if you want to eat out, just put the table outside. So it's very different from here.
Yeah.
We eat out most of the time, and then if you want to do something nice, then sometimes we cook at home. But there's always cooking at home, and the best restaurants is our mom's kitchen, and
always
so that probably is a difference that helps us to keep a little bit healthier than if you were to eat out more often.
Exactly. So coming to the next question, I think that people might have, and there tends to be a little confusion even for the everyday person. What is the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist?
Well, a dietitian is a protected term in a lot of countries, and it's someone that has a university degree, bachelor or master's in dietetics and nutrition, and we are qualified to assess person's diet, to manage conditions that are related to disease like diabetes, heart disease, and so on. So everything that is related to disease, we can come in and support, and we have the clinical training. So it means that we did have to take a certain number of hours in a clinical setting, like a hospital, supervised in order to be able to have this title. A nutritionist can have a degree in nutritional sciences. Some countries, the number of years is lesser, but they don't have the clinical training. So they only can advise people in general nutrition. They can't see people with diabetes, with heart disease, kidney disease, for instance. It's just only on the general topic, and it's not a protective title in a lot of places. In Singapore, you do need to have the degree in order to be a nutritionist, or at least be an accredited nutritionist of Singapore by the SNDA.
So a dietitian is basically able to advise an individual from also medical perspective.
Yes.
That means if they have diabetes and high blood pressure and things like that, what they should be eating to avoid it from going up.
Yes.
And what they can do to sort of reduce it. Right. Okay.
Yes.
So that sort of brings us to the next part where your portfolio seems to reflect you extend across various sections in the medical health sector: cardiology, women's health, oncology, bariatrics, and orthopedic surgery as well. What role does diet play in these individual areas? Because they all seem very different from each other. But I'm sure, from your perspective, it's quite holistic. Because what I feel is that as people, we tend to think of ourselves as individual parts. So it's like, when your stomach hurts, it's your stomach hurting. Or when you have a headache, it's your headache. It's a headache. We don't think about what we're consuming on a daily basis that could be contributing.
I guess if we are eating healthily, we are taking care of all aspects of our health, because all our body is made with cells, and all of them require nutrients in order to strike. For our heart to be pumping, for our liver to be functioning, for our kidneys to be doing their job filtering, they need to be supported as well. And when it's if they don't have enough nutrients coming in, I'm not even talking about protein, carbs, and fats, I'm also talking about vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, then they will not be able to have everything they need. And in all these different fields that I work, the way that we approach it might be a little bit different, but in the end of the day, it's more or less the same. For instance, cardiovascular disease, my work, I see a lot of patients that for cardio rehab, which means that they had a heart attack, or they just went into an angioplasty, and so it is discovered that they have a few arteries blocked. They did the procedure to open up the arteries. They are at an increased risk of having another heart attack, to have another blocked artery. So my role is to assess the diet, understand where was the role of the diet in the development of this disease, and diet, lifestyle. So I don't only look into what they eat, but how do they sleep, how much hydrated they are, what's the exercise that you do, how stressed are you, how fast do you eat, where do you eat, everything. So it's a very long conversation that we hold with our patients. And this also helps them not only reduce the risk, complement the work that the doctor is doing, so reduce blood pressure, reduce cholesterol, but also improve their quality of life, because it's something that they always say, I feel better now that I'm not eating the food that I was eating before, that I'm sleeping better, I'm exercising more. That might be a little bit different, like the oncology, for instance. Their work with patients that are ongoing treatment, and this group of patients, they are very stressed. They feel like they lost control over their body is taking over them, the disease is taking over them. So food is the thing that gives them a lot of safety. This is the thing that I can do. But internet is full of things and information, and everyone is trying to give them tips. Oh, you should eat this and you should eat that. So it's very confusing, and it brings a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress as well.
So the thing is, when you mention, when people look online and see that there's so much information out there, because my mom is a survivor, and it was so confusing for all of us to figure out where do we start, and how do we support her during that time period, especially the diet, because that's what keeps you going, but it's also what doesn't stay in. You feel nauseous and things like that.
Low appetite.
Yes, very low appetite and things like that. But it's wonderful to have someone like yourself, to give sound advice, to say, because honestly, like even social media gives you so many different myths and ideas that, eating this is great, drink green tea every day, or, things like that. And we don't know what is right and wrong. And that's the whole purpose of, doing something like that.
Let me just add, even in the recommendations that I have to give to my patients, what is suitable for one person might not be suitable for the other person. So we can't just look into the internet and find what is it, because it might just be completely wrong, and it might be putting you into more stress and more anxiety, and even health risks.
And I think is what also works is that I think that understanding that they get, because it becomes a habit. Diet is a habit, isn't it? I would say we need that education and that understanding of what food works for us on a daily basis. So speaking of that, is it true that eating vegetables reduces falling sick? We tell all the little ones, eat your vegetables, we force it down their throat, and we always tell them that. But honestly speaking, I have no idea whether it actually plays a significant role in keeping, like what the doctor said, an apple a day, keeps the doctor away.
You might need more than an apple. Definitely. And it is no mistake that those who follow plant-based diets, especially vegans, and we talk about healthy diet, I'm not talking about the unhealthy, because vegans can also have unhealthy diets. They have lower incidence of cancer. They have lower incidence of cardiovascular disease. And they can even live longer than people that are the omnivorous. So this is because of the plants that they are eating. Not only the fiber, the plants, the fiber plus vitamins plus minerals plus antioxidants. We know that up to 50% of cancers could have been prevented if it wasn't for the diet and lifestyle. Blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar levels, inflammatory markers like the C-reactive protein, and a lot of the times now doctors are doing quite a bit. And even the risk of dying from heart disease is lowered if we follow a plant-based diet. So yes, we should keep on exposing, not force them to eat the vegetables, but exposing them to the vegetables. But more important than our children, if you don't eat them, they will not eat. So we need to make sure that half of what we eat comes from vegetables.
So eat your vegetables.
Yes.
Kids, everyone.
And fruits.
Fruits, right. And so in Singapore, we do get an array of vegetables. If I were to
It's wonderful.
Which vegetables or fruits would you recommend? Because we have so many options and we don't necessarily know as people like what is high in fiber. And some fruits, I'm not sure if that's a myth, or some fruits are very sweet, like mangoes, which we all love, in Asia. Are these good choices?
Everything is a good choice. Okay. And the more variety you get, the best will be for you. So the trick is really to add more variety to the diet. So I never say just stick with one or two. It's the more you have, and I think it's absolutely wonderful that we have so much variety, so much to choose from. You can never get bored of eating vegetables and fruits because you have so much to pick. I have had a cousin that came from Portugal last 2 weeks ago, and he was telling me, why don't we have all of these green leafy vegetables in Portugal? I'm like, yeah, it's not regional. They only have cabbage. We have loads of different types of cabbages, but it's cabbage. The taste doesn't change much. But here we have so much. Different vegetables, different plants will bring different nutrients in, will bring different types of antioxidants. So we do need a little bit of everything. I will dare to say different colors. The green leafy vegetables we know is really good for cognitive health. And so for those who are older, our grandparents are doing the right thing by having the green leafy vegetables in their meals every day, because it really helps with cognitive health. Reduce the onset of Alzheimer's, keeps our memory in shape. The fruits is the same. The more variety, the better. I don't restrict any fruits.
Maybe if we could go back to, the different diets that we have. I think it's quite interesting. In Singapore, we consume a lot of carbs and rice, so our portions are quite different. Is that true? Like, is there different portion sizes between Europe and Singapore?
Oh, yes. I just came back from Portugal. I was there on a road trip, so we couldn't cook. Usually when I go back home, we just have home cooked meals. And this time around was every meal eating out. And the portions are massive over there. And if we bring guests home to our house, we always fill up the plate in a much bigger way that we have it here. And I think that's a good thing of Singapore, that our portions are still very moderate. Obviously, depends of which cuisine are we talking about, although we still have a lot of food waste, even with our smaller portions. I guess when we eat out, then we pick too many dishes.
And would you say that Singaporeans are largely smaller eaters?
They're more snackers.
Snackers, that's right. Oh, yes.
Snackers. Not everyone. I do have a lot, for those who are listening, I do have a lot of clients that do not snack and they just have the 3 meals a day. But I do find that the 3 meals are like the standard here. But then you don't see the snack as a meal. You just see something that you would just grab on the way and just eat. I would say, for instance, in Portugal, we have a time to have a snack. But then here, you don't have a timing. Most of the times, the Indians will have the 5 o'clock snack, but
very close to dinner time.
Yes, just why dinner is so late afterwards. But then there's a lot of, like, you're working, you go to the pantry and you just start eating. You're bored, you go and have, or you found this new snack in the supermarket, or so your colleague just came from Japan
and they
brought
buy
all of these things.
Yes.
So you don't have a time, you don't sit down, you don't treat it as a meal. So that tends to be not so ideal, I guess, nutritionally speaking. And because you're eating standing, not fully conscious, your brain will not resist it. You're actually eating, and it'll still give you the hunger associated with those calories that you missed out. We know that those who eat mindfully, eat with intention, attention, and care, kindness, they can feel more full and they can eat less on the next meal. And we think that's because your brain actually recorded that moment of eating. It takes 20 minutes for our stomach to tell our brain that we are full. We never eat in 20 minutes.
No.
So we need to rely on things like the eyes, the ears, the taste, the chewing process to help the brain with that information, to capture that information, the smell. So if we are rushing through, there's no way our brain can do the work.
Another topic that I think I wanted to also talk about is women's fertility, how diet actually influences women's fertility. And today, in a city like Singapore, for example, in most cities, women are getting married a bit later, and they may plan for children a bit later, right? Because they want to focus on their careers and things like that. So how can they understand to incorporate a good or healthy diet to help with their fertility?
I would not put the pressure only on women.
I like that.
Because it takes two to dance the tango. And the truth is, we have our eggs from the moment we are born. So our fertility capacity gets firstly decided by our moms and how she did during pregnancy.
Okay.
because the number of eggs that we are born with, that's it. We don't grow more eggs after we are born. And we lose eggs from that moment all the way till menopause. Menopause is when the supply is gone. Our role is to make sure the diet is balanced enough, have everything that your body needs, and especially everything related to fertility needs to thrive. And so you give the best outcomes. So this is for women's side, and there's so much more that we could explore. But the men get a brand new batch of sperm every 3 months. And we know that diet plays huge role, how protective your diet is. Are you bringing diet, exercise, stress, and everything that they do will impact the quality of the sperm, whether they have enough or not, if they're mobile, the quality, the whole thing. And we know that the father's sperm will compromise future generations as well. If the man has a bigger control, he's always us doing all the hard work, but they have more control. What they do can have a shorter impact. We need to work the whole lives. They just need 3 months.
Now, having said that, is one thing that I think most people do enjoy every now and then, which is alcohol.
Well, I guess I need to start by saying I do enjoy my glass of wine. And as much as any next person, drinking alcohol doesn't come without any risks. 2 to 3 drinks a day increases the risk of colorectal cancer by 21%. And in postmenopausal women, not women that already went through menopause, even 1 drink a day will increase the risk of breast cancer.
What about things like caffeine, coffee and tea?
Oh, that's a great topic. So coffee, we have 2 types of people in the planet. We have those who are genetically fast metabolizers of caffeine. And these people, they can have 3 coffees a day, can actually protect them against cardiovascular disease. But then we have the other half of the population that are slow metabolizers. And this is a very specific gene you can actually test it for. Having more than a cup of coffee a day will increase your risk of cardiovascular disease, will increase your risk of having high blood pressure. So I always say, listen to yourself. If you notice that you can't drink much, stick with 1. But even if you can, stick with 3, don't go more than that.
Again, coming back to the digital world, there's so much information that's out there. And there's so many different views and perceptions that we take in on a daily basis. And all of this influence the way we see ourselves.
Yes.
And that, I think, affects our relationship with food. Could you tell us more about that? Where do we draw the line?
It seems like a simple question, but actually it's very complex. It requires a very complex answer. And I think to start with understanding that social media, it's made to attract, to make people hooked on it. And it's something that I always teach my teenagers that come in with eating disorders, tell them that social media is not true. The information that is created, the content that is creating is only with the sole purpose of hooking you up. Self-love, it comes with us respecting and accepting our bodies, the body that we are born with, that we live in, because this bodies bring us life. A very good example is that imagine that you want to have a piece of chocolate. You're getting into your menses time, that week before our menses, where our appetite is all over the place.
Yes.
And I guess most of us can relate to that. Yes. So there's 2 ways of approaching it. Either with kindness that says, okay, this is something that happens every month. I know that it's going to happen. How can I deal with this better? So you can grab your food, go to the table, sit down, look at the food and imagine like, oh, I'm going to have an amazing time right now eating this. The other approach is that we open the fridge, we take the food, we stay there in the door, sometimes with the door open, and we just
stare into it.
Inhale it. You just inhale everything. And then we feel miserable about ourselves, why you did it, here you are doing again, you are a failure, you are this, you are that, you're such a bad person.
Guilty.
You need to start calling names for yourself. All of this will lead to this everything or nothing approach. So there's a lot of consequences from this not respecting yourself and not having that self-love and not accepting what it is. That is one of the lines that I would draw. And beyond that, we have this internal bias, how we feel about ourselves and how we feel we are worth it because of the weight that we carry, but also how society sees us and how society treats us. Treat us meaning treating people in larger bodies. And we know, for instance, healthcare professionals like me, doctors, dietitians, nurses, anyone will provide different types of services for a person in a larger body. Imagine a person that lives in a big body. If they're not feeling well and they know they're going to go to the doctor and all the doctor will tell us is, you're fat, you need to lose weight, they will not go. They will not do. So they will just live with whatever symptoms that they carry. And now we think that that's one of the reasons why people in larger bodies are having more diseases. But I think the starting point is really to accept. And then once you accept, once you acknowledge all of this, the weight stigma, the weight bias, you go and advocate for yourself. You go to a clinic, the doctor tells you need to lose weight, say, yes, I hear you, but what else? Can you please check? Can you please treat me? So I think that's one of the things that comes, the positive things that is coming from body positivity. Obesity is not a self-inflicted disease. It's a disease, it's a condition that comes from where we live, how we live, and how much was given to us, or how little was given to us.
So before we go, do you have anything that you wanted to share?
I guess I can start by saying just love yourself first and be thankful for the body that you live and treat it as a friend. I think that's the first thing, because when you do, we always treat our friends well and people that we love well. And if you have questions, if you are going through any kind of lifestyle changings, being that family planning, pregnancy, menopause, go and see a dietitian. Don't just go to the internet and try to find answers to those questions, because sometimes those answers are not the right ones and it will not be the right ones for you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Claudia. So, and to our listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode of Open House. Remember, for every question you have, there's somebody out there with an answer. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, let us know what you're interested to learn or understand better, and share this with anyone who might benefit from our discussion. So till next time, see you, and follow us on our socials for more updates. Thank you.